as a domestic terrorist going to school board meetings.
Oh, there you go. The most dangerous place in America, man.
Screaming, pointing,
Yeah.
all those kinds of things. In Hoboken, New Jersey, sorry, another New Jersey person.
Yeah.
I'm here on vacation. And that was in '09, I was elected, and the only Republican in Hudson County elected. And there's nothing you can do, there's nothing you can do, there's nothing you can do. And then Christie became governor, and all of a sudden, we could do things. We capped on superintendent's pays, and I'm going to all the details, but it was like, wow, finally we had some support from Trenton to help us, the little guys who are actually doing the work on the school board. And one thing I learned is it's crazy being on the school board. I think it's worse than being governor.
Oh, it is. Let me tell you something. I've always said this. The school board is the most thankless elected position in America.
And it pays zero.
Pays zero.
Yeah.
Everybody knows you. Everybody's got an opinion. Look, politics, schools, and baseball are all the same. Because everybody votes, so they think they know what to do in politics. Everybody went to school, so they think they know what to do in education. And everybody played baseball, so they think they can manage the Red Sox, right? So, like, it's just the way it is. So everybody's got an opinion on everything you do.
So what, at the federal government, there's not a lot you can do to come all the way down to the granular level of, you know, all the issues we all know that go on in schools. So what do you say about schools and school choice and...
You will not be surprised to hear, given that you were serving on the school board in Hoboken when I was governor, that I think that the fact that we spend $400 billion a year on K-12 education in this country, and that 39% of our 8th graders don't read at grade level, and 25% of our 8th graders don't do math at grade level, in this country today is a disgrace. And it is the product of a public school system, which not universally, but in enough instances has failed, and families have no choice but to take what they get. And so what I would say to you is that, like, yeah, it's hard at the federal level, but what I would do is you have more than half the states now who have some type of school choice program. We need to take all the money we spend federally at the Department of Education, which is about $80 billion, and use that to incentivize all the states to say, if you put school choice in place, we'll give you your share of the money. And you can use it on school choice. Because what we're doing in Washington, D.C. is a Band-Aid. It's nothing. It's $80 billion. It's 20% of the overall spend for K-12 education in the country. You're not going to change the whole country that way, but what you can do is incentivize people to change. And you know, having run the school board, every dollar counts. And the money that comes from the feds matters, not determinative. Property taxes are, state aid are the two that are mostly determinative. But if we can incentivize people to do that and make them understand why, because competition in our system is good. And look, I went to public school, K-12. I grew up in Livingston. We had a great public school system. I got a great education. I'm running for president of the United States. I can't really complain about what it did for me. But if you go to one of your neighboring towns in Jersey City, and you think about some of the schools there, you realize that a lot of those kids, despite how much we spend, are consigned to failure. Newark, Camden, Trenton, Patterson, worse than all. Those families deserve a choice, and they should not be required to sit in that public school that's failing because they don't have the money to pay for something else. Now, let me tell you how it works in my house. I went to public school, kindergarten to 12th grade. Mary Pat went to parochial school, kindergarten to 12th grade. We have 4 children. They all went to parochial school. So she sits there quietly smiling. You don't know why she's smiling. But, like, look, in the end, we had the money to make that choice. We pay all these property taxes to fund the schools. 75% of our property taxes go to the schools. And it's a lot. In New Jersey, the most in property taxes anywhere in the country. I didn't complain about it. I think it's my obligation to help fund the public schools, whether my kids use them or not. But we made enough money to be able to pay for the parochial school too. But what if you don't? It's not right. Talk about 2 tiers of justice. That's 2 tiers of justice at the most basic level. Because you don't get a good education. There's nowhere to go in this country. Nowhere to go. So what I would do is to use that to try to encourage a radical change in this and say, let's have everybody have choice. And go where they want to go. A lot of people pick public schools. I would bet you in my old hometown of Livingston, or in the current town we live in Mendham, the overall majority of people would pick the public school. Because they're already paying for it, and they think it's good education, and it is, and they'd be fine. But if there are people who want to get out of a failed situation, why should we be spending all this money for failure? I'll give you an example. The best example I have from when I was governor was Camden. Camden had 6 of the 10 worst schools in our state. And the city of Camden is 1 square mile. 6 of the 10 worst schools in the state. So we went in there, we took over the school board, and we said, you are going to build charter schools and Renaissance schools. We're going to help you pay for it. We wanted private vendors as well. And what you've seen in the last 10 years since we did that is that the reading scores for 8th graders in Camden have gone up over 70%. The math scores for kids in Camden, even more, nearly 80%. And it's because it's not that the kids are not the problem. You have to craft the education to the circumstance you find the child in. For most of these kids, they had very difficult home lives. They didn't have parents. When they had parents at home, those parents were often working 2, 3, 4 jobs collectively to live. You're not home. Are you doing your homework? So we made longer school day, longer school year in Camden. And kids thrived. They got better. This should not be a one-size-fits-all. And the last thing I'll say about just the schools, since I got on the school calendar, like seriously, we need the whole summer off? I mean, you know that's all like the agrarian calendar, right? That's the way it started, was that people farmed in the summer. Nobody in Hoboken is farming. No one's farming. No one's farming in my town either. They're not farming. This has become a perk of the job for the teachers union. That they get also. I remember when teachers, you'll remember, when the teachers union hates me, and I don't hate anyone, but I don't like them much. They used to complain about, I was trying to cap salaries, I was trying to do other things, make them pay for a small portion of their health benefits, put more into their pension, all this stuff. And they'd say to me, this is horrible, it's terrible, like we don't get paid enough. I'm like, wait a second. I saw one teacher one day and I said, you get paid, this particular teacher, got paid $95,000. She's like, well, $95,000 a year in New Jersey. I said, hold on a second. You work half a year?
Yeah.
Half a year. You do something else during the summer? Well, yes, I have this sort of, well, I get credit for that too. Because if you didn't have this job, you wouldn't be able to do that. I mean, we need to get real about what's going on here. I don't hate teachers, I love teachers. But they deserve a union as good as they are. And they don't have one. They have a union, as you know, who protects the worst of them. Protects the worst of them. In the city of Newark, when I came in, there were over 100 teachers who were in what they called the rubber room. They called it the rubber room. These teachers were so bad that they thought it would be injurious to the students to have them in the classroom. But the union wouldn't permit them to fire them. So they paid them. And every day they would come to the central office and go into this big room, read books, read a newspaper, watch TV. And we're getting paid full-time salary and benefits. It's crazy, right? But what the unions do is they protect the worst. Because you know why? If they get fired, they don't pay union dues anymore. Now, you know how much in New Jersey they collected in union dues? Get ready. Every mandatory. By state law mandatory. At that time when I was governor, they were paying $730 a year in dues. How many members of the teachers union are in New Jersey? 200,000. Now, do the math. They collected that $146 million every year. And they didn't pay a nickel towards teacher pay, teacher health care. Not a nickel. You paid all that. And what did they do with that $146 million? They stopped paying themselves. They spread the money around to help their friends who supported them no matter what, and opposed the people like me who came after them and demanded accountability. And you'll remember the billboards and the TV commercials. I mean, we had this great story. One time we're driving down the New Jersey Turnpike, and there's this huge billboard. We have our kids in the car, and Patrick, who is our third, was like 11 years old. There's this big billboard, and it was a horrible picture of me on there. And it's not hard to get, but they got it. And it said, Christie hates children.
Oh.
And we passed by, and I'm hoping that the kids didn't see it. Right? If any of our 4 kids would say anything, it was Patrick. Our third of 4, the strongest thirst to drink, who is now 23 years old. And he said, hey, Dad. I said, yeah, Patrick. He goes, your people should get better pictures of you if they're going to come out. And I said, those were not my people, Patrick. They did that on purpose. So I think those are the things that we need to do. And the president needs to talk about it and inspire people to do better. And we can do better. And we have done better in the past. That's why I know we can. And we're accepting mediocrity, and we shouldn't. We shouldn't, and because we kill those kids. I see you, Carl. Carl's got one more question. Because I have to go on Caitlin Collins at 9 o'clock. So I got to end on time tonight, which I normally